And then you tell me what you see.
We see there. That looks like a presentation.
Okay, but do you see one screen or two screens?
Just one.
Okay, that's a good thing, because if you see something else, please tell me, because I want to make sure that we do this right. So guys, hi, I'm Robin. I introduced myself a little bit, but it's so good to be with all of you guys. So I recently moved back to this hometown of mine from Texas, and wow, I am just trying to get re-immersed in the community. It's changed a lot in some ways. In some ways, it really hasn't changed as much as I would have thought. So, but I want to talk to you guys about my love, emotional intelligence. So before I start with that, what is emotional intelligence and who uses that? So everybody, and we're going to discover what it is today. I work with a lot of healthcare organizations, especially during this pandemic, with a lot of burnout, a lot of people being triggered. We'll talk more about that. I work with schools. I work with manufacturing organizations, anybody and everybody. But this group today is just so inspiring to be with. So if you guys are like, oh, she's touchy-feely, I kind of am. So that's just me. And so you don't have to go with that, but it's really inspiring to hear what all of you all are doing, because once we finish this, you'll see why this excites me about emotional intelligence. And so I really want to talk about what emotional intelligence is, first of all. And so a lot of people, they'll say, emotional intelligence, what is that? Well, let me just throw this out to you first of all. How about self-awareness? How about awareness of others? And it's still hard to kind of assimilate what EI, I'm going to call it EI, is, but I want to take you through some exercises, and then we have other trainings that we could do called Leading with Emotional Intelligence, but I want to back up just a little bit from the Leading with Emotional Intelligence to explain what emotional intelligence really is. Now, we know what it is, we just don't realize we know what it is. So, a paper, and if not, can you open your notes on your device so you can take some notes? And I want to take you through this exercise. And I want you to think back and reach back. So sometimes it might take a little bit of time for you to decide who you want to actually think about, but I want you to, in your imagination, think of the best person ever that you've ever been associated with. It could be a boss, it could be a coach, it could be a teacher, a peer, a parent, a friend. But what I want you to do is write their name or their initials. And this is good because we're all remote, so we can't see who everybody else is writing. Write their initials on top of the page or on your notepad. And so I want you to think about that person. And I want to take you through a little bit of a rating of that person as your best person ever. Now that's, and really think about your best person ever. So I have mine. Mine was my mentor. And every time I go through this exercise, it goes right back to that person. It was my mentor. And I get to rate that person. So I'm going to give you some statements, and you can see at the bottom of the screen, there's a 5-point rating scale. And so 1 is significantly less than others, 2 is less than others, 3 is about typical, 4 is more than others, and 5 is significantly more than others. And I'm going to give you an example of the first one. So I want you to think of your best person ever. And on this scale of 1 to 5, I want you to rate this person if they demonstrate awareness of their mood and emotions. And so let me give you an example of what I mean. Okay, I was with an organization by another very large organization. And so if you've ever been in a merger and acquisition, you know how that can go. So you get kind of mushed in with people that you don't know. You get invited to meetings. with people that you don't know. And you're always pretty much aware that you just got acquired. So you might be on the table to be no longer there. So we're all invited to this really large meeting. And we'd had some interesting, let me say, discussions in the past with some of these meetings in the last few months since the acquisition. I was with a colleague, and here we are in the midst of this huge organization. And of course, we knew our place in the organization that was acquired, but we weren't quite sure of our place in the new organization. And so, you know how it goes with meetings, with board meetings. Let's use board meetings sometime. So the meeting starts out very cordial. People chat, introduce, talk about what's happening, and then the meeting starts and things get a little bit, and I knew this was going to happen. Things sometimes get a little bit shaky. So my colleague, the conversation became rather not really heated, but on that, in that direction, right? So it was going in that direction. And my colleague got up and left the meeting. And so my first inclination was, how dare she? Where did she go? She left me here all alone. Well, it wasn't just a few minutes that she came back. And after the meeting, she told me what had happened. I'm like, wow, you left me. She goes, no, I didn't mean to leave you, but the conversation was going where I really couldn't go. And so my grandmother always taught me when I was triggered to leave and try to run some cold water over my wrist. Now, there's nothing scientific about that. So you can try that, or that was just what she did. But she, and that usually brings me back, calms down. A 5. So on a scale of 1 to 5, I'm like rated your best person ever. That's the first. Feel appreciated. Does your best person ever? How do they feel? Scale of 1 to 5. Yourself any point decisions, difficult situations. Recognizes others' hard work and achievements. Okay, now I want you to total all of those up, write those down wherever you're taking the notes, and save that for a little bit later. Okay, let's talk about how your best person makes you feel. So think of 3 words. Don't speak them yet, because we're going to unmute and talk about those in a second. Well, not in a second, in a few minutes. All right, so I know you've heard about, or you've heard the term discretionary effort. So this is a level of effort that people can go if they wanted to. So if they want to give above and beyond, we would say that's a 10. If they just gave the minimum required, that would be a 1 or a 2 or a 3, scale of 1 to 10. So how much does your best person make you want to go the extra mile? 1, 2, 3 is not really. 4 through 7 is kind of, or meh, you don't mess. And highly is 8 through 10. And make sure you keep that down. You write that down. Okay, let's go to the dark side. And if it feels like I'm rushing, I want to make sure we get through this in the time that we have. So we would go slower typically, but we don't have that much time. So Think about your worst person ever. And oh my goodness, that smiley face is a little bit sad to me. So I debated whether or not that was too extreme, but you know, it was between this and Darth Vader. So I picked the smiley face with the sad, the tears. So think about your worst person ever. It could be that same category. It could be a boss, a coach, a teacher, a peer, a parent, a direct report, and write their initials on top of the page. Now let's do the same thing that we did. And let's rate your experience of your worst person ever. How much did this person demonstrate awareness of their mood and decisions and emotions? Sorry. So think about this. Has there ever been someone that just was not aware of how they impacted or affected not just you, but the whole room? So think about that. Your worst person, how did they demonstrate awareness of their mood and their decisions? Did they make others feel appreciated? How much on a scale of 1 to 5? Open and honest about mistakes. Makes ethical decisions. Manages their emotions effectively in difficult situations. Recognizes others' hard work and achievements. Now, again, I want you to make sure you total that up, and let's say that for just a few minutes. How did your worst person make you feel? Write down 3 words like you did before. And this is sometimes tough, so write down your 3 words. How about discretionary effort? How well did your worst person motivate you? Would you go the extra mile? Would you run through fire for them? 1, 2, 3, not at all. 4 through 7, 8 through 10, yes, highly. Okay, again, I know we're rushing through this. We're not really having time to discuss, but unmute yourselves if you can. It's okay. We can have lots of, I want to hear some feedback. Not feedback like the robot, but I want to hear some feedback. So let's think about your best person. And all of these scores, you're going to have a score from 6 to 30. So tell me, what was your score for your best person?
30.
Wow. Anyone else?
It was 30 for me too.
30.
Wow.
30.
Wow.
27.
Okay. Anyone under 27?
23.
Anyone under 18? That's not even a possibility. It might be. Okay, so you see that you rated that person pretty high. So let me hear, what 3 words did you write down for how that person makes you feel?
Included.
Nice.
Inspired.
Oh, inspired is powerful.
Appreciated.
Nice.
Understood.
Mhm.
Valued.
Love it.
Love.
Nice. Yes.
Valued.
Nice. Okay, so ignore my PowerPoint because I have no idea what happened to the 10, but we were going to rate how this person motivated you. So it's supposed to say 1 through 10, but it says 1 through 1.0 or something. So how did this person motivate you on a scale of 1 to 10?
10.
10.
Wow.
And
10.
So it sounds like you guys would jump through hoops for this person. Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna take it down to the dark side again, and I'm sorry, but we have to talk about this. So please keep yourself unmuted because I do want to hear your feedback. What was your score for your worst person?
5.
Wow.
7.
5.
Come on, there's more of you.
13.
11. 15.
Do you see the difference? And how this, yeah, you see how, so, okay, let me hear some of the words you wrote about how this worst person made you feel. Or makes you feel.
Worthless.
Whoa, that's bad.
Stupid.
Oh,
Defeated.
mm,
Unappreciated.
I'm sorry.
Angry.
Manipulated. Irritated.
Wow. So none of those made me feel good. None of those make us feel good. So how did you rate that person? How did they motivate you? Or did they?
0.
-10.
Exactly. Exactly, Emma. I hear that quite a bit. That's really cool. So let me go a little bit further. So Maya Angelou, she said a lot of very cool things. And this happens to be one of my 2 favorite things that Maya Angelou quoted. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. You cannot, that just doesn't go away. That just does not go away. And that's emotional intelligence, but I want to take it a little bit further. We are all the same in one way. And the way we show up, which is emotional intelligence, determines the way people feel. And the way they feel, it really determines how they can engage, to what extent they can engage. And that determines almost everything, if you really think about it. So now we're starting to see what emotional intelligence is. We just saw that in the exercise we completed. So I deal with emotional intelligence competencies, and people think that emotional intelligence can't be improved, but that is totally not correct. So you see what I took you through is just an unproductive state of emotional intelligence opposed to a productive state. That's really all we did. And again, we don't have time to really dive into this. We would do this more in emotional intelligence, a course, more like a series of courses. So this is emotional intelligence. But you know what? There's still some things we need to really understand about EI because, you know, I've been doing this a long time and I've heard every defense against EI, that it's not a thing. I say, okay, let's call it self-awareness, that it's not a thing, that it really doesn't happen. There's nothing scientific to back it, but there is. Let me tell you about that. Because it doesn't matter who you are, how you identify. It doesn't matter what your nationality is, your color, etc., your age. There's one thing that makes us all the same. And I think you're probably guessing what it is by now. It's this. We all have one of these. This is the operating system that we all have. And I want to show you a little bit more about that, but I want your help in an observation test that I have. It's going to last about 2 minutes. Hopefully the video will play. Hopefully you'll get to see it, but try not to become distracted. Try to watch the video, and then I want your feedback after that. So here we go. And if the video doesn't show, then you guys let me know. Come back on and let me know. But here it comes. Okay, unmute for a second. How many of you are mad at me?
I've already seen it, so it didn't get me,
Emma,
but
I saw you look away, Emma. Okay, so this, I'm sorry about this, if it startled you too much, but this is a good video to prove to you how we're triggered. And this really happens to every one of us. And it's really about how we handle that. So again, I'm sorry, not sorry, because this is my favorite part of the entire session. In person, especially, watching people just try to run out of the room or think about running out of the room. But this is what you experienced. Now, don't do this at home, okay? But I want you to know that if you took a pen or a pencil and you stuck it in your eye and you stuck another in your ear. So I'm sorry, really, this is just an example. Don't do this at home. Don't do it anywhere. Dr. Hopland, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. But if you could understand where those 2 points meet, there's these two little things called the amygdala. And they're little almond-shaped things right behind your eye and ear, where that meets on each side of your brain. And this is where every stimulus comes through. This is what happens anytime anything happens. So when you saw the zombie, that's the stimulus. When you saw the car going through the beautiful countryside, that was a stimulus. And when the amygdala detects a stimulus, it throws it immediately into what we call the emotional brain. And there's only two choices, risk or reward. Now, guys, I really want to bring something up here. And this is kind of hard to imagine, but you saw how your amygdala was kind of revving like maybe the revving of an engine of a car. And it was revved for a second. And then you decided what you were going to do about that. Some of our kids who are in trauma situations all the time, can you imagine just having your foot on that accelerator and revving and revving and revving and revving, and not just kids, also adults. I'm seeing a lot of that happen right now with the pandemic. And so there's that constant revving. And so when there's any stimulus, a lot of times, that is somehow dangerous all of a sudden. Instead of waiting that revving sometimes brings us back to, oh, it's not reward, it's always danger. So when we get people who have been revved and revved and revved and revved, and we all have in this pandemic, but think about kids who have been really exposed to trauma. That's what we're seeing sometimes. When it becomes too much, that becomes second nature. But I want to go back to the neuroscience. So you see the way you feel impacts the decisions you make and the extent to which you can engage, because when the stimulus happens and we decide how we're going to handle it, it throws it right into the thinking brain. So then what happens? Well, we get to determine that. We get to determine whether that's danger or that's reward. How is this dangerous, or is this going to be a good thing for me? So it's not just for children. I would say I teach adults typically, and leadership development programs are going really toward this because it's teaching us how to weigh everything that comes through almost everything that comes through our amygdala. So what we want to do is minimize threats and maximize the rewards. That's the organizing principle of the brain. It's the same for everyone. So when you know this, you can communicate with anybody, because really you know that I am you, you are me, we're all the same, except when we're aware. And that's emotional intelligence. let me take you back for just a second about the neuroscience of emotions. So when we throw it into the thinking brain, if you remember the exercise that we just completed, some of those words that you gave me about your worst person ever, some of those words are kind of heartbreaking. And if you think about that relationship with your worst person ever, some of those are really heartbreaking because it causes you to be disengaged. But think about your best person ever. Look at the difference. And if we had time for word clouds, we would have done a word cloud today, but we didn't have time for that. So I just pasted one from another session that I conducted, and these are some of the words that I heard from you guys. And those are just the opposite of how the worst person made you feel, which are engaged, connected, open. And then you get to decide how you feel and what those emotions are going to do and the decisions you're going to make and how you're going to engage. Because we were talking about the worst person ever and the best person ever. Okay, so turn that finger around and let's point to ourselves. Because the way I show up determines the way I have people feeling around me. And the way they feel determines the extent to which they can engage with me and everybody else possibly around us at that time. And that impacts pretty much everything about the outcome of that relationship. I've been in meetings before when one person could say the wrong thing and the entire meeting just turned. But that's not on just that person. That's how can I weigh that risk reward? Is it a risk or reward? And then how do I make people feel? Like Maya Angelou said. So emotional intelligence is this. I want you to take this away from this session. That emotional intelligence helps you to identify those emotions accurately, not just in ourselves, but in others. So I walk into a meeting and so looked at me that way again. Is that really going to determine the way I make other people feel? No, it doesn't have to. It helps us understand and manage our emotions. And once we know this, we can help everyone else with that, just as a role model. And it helps us use and effectively communicate our emotions and feelings, because not every negative emotion is not a bad emotion. Sometimes we need to be able to express those, but some of us are very candid and maybe very blunt, me being one of those. And it's taken me years to determine how I should let that come out. So sometimes negative emotions and feelings have to be talked about, but how do I do it? And how can I do it where people can engage with me the most? So I'm not going to take any questions right now. I would love to, but I believe I'm going to come right under that 30 minutes. So yay, that doesn't usually happen with me. But here's what I want you to do. I want you to email me if you have questions, because I would love to engage with you. I would love to get to know all of you more. And if you can, email me the results of the survey that we did. The good person, bad person, best person, worst person. And I'll come back and I'll give that feedback to Jillian, and she can get that out to you guys. So if you have questions, feel free to email me. My phone number is down in the corner. It's tiny, but it's 254-495-4901. And I would also love to share any of this with your employees, with your workforces. So you guys just let me know. Back to Jillian.
Thank you so much, Robin, for sharing. Hope that was helpful for everyone and you all enjoyed that. So at this time, we're going to go into our breakout rooms. I'm going to try something different today. I'm going to try to let us assign ourselves to breakout rooms. So I have the breakout room set up, and you should be able to pick the room that you want. So maybe I won't be putting you in the wrong room this time. So as a reminder, our first subcommittee is the Substance Abuse Committee with Dolly. Committee 2 is Action and Awareness with me, and Committee 3 is the Data Collection Committee with Dr. DeLucia. So I'm going to go ahead and open these now.
Hello?
Yes,
Anybody here?
Elisa's here.
I'm here. Can you hear me? This is Norma. Hello, can you hear me? This is Norma.
Hey, Miss Norma, which room were you in?
Hi,
Do you remember?
I'm on the telephone. Sorry, I couldn't get video this afternoon.
You are fine. Do you remember which subcommittee you were in? I think you were in the second.
I'm in the one that's active,
Okay.
with the gardening and the.
Rebecca, where do you go?
I'm with Dolly.
Dolly? Okay. And Chelsea? Okay.
Oh, Charlie, this is actually pretty handy. And I know.
Hey, friends. Sorry it took me a minute to get over here. I'm going to.
Hello.
I'm gonna share my screen with everybody. So since our last meeting, I have tried to create a somewhat of a calendar with a little bit of a plan for what we may want to focus on, integrating all of the goals that we had mentioned the first couple of meetings. So I'm going to put this in the chat. So if y'all can't see my screen very well, you will be able to see it hopefully this way. So really, I want feedback on this today, on if there are things that we have missed, things that we want to focus on more. I'm going to scroll down here to April. So I know we had mentioned doing something with Sexual Assault Awareness Month in April. I'm not sure if Dr. McCook is still on here with us or not. So for April, I have that event. There are a few little events on here, a few other events. And then we had talked about making education of the community on environment, litter, outdoor recreation, promoting parks and green spaces and those kinds of things. So I also have that as a focus for this month. On this calendar. So this calendar can kind of be a public calendar that we have. I'll show you one other calendar that I made here. So this one can kind of be a public shared calendar. So if we have people that add events or activities through that form, we can always be putting that on there. And then this is a calendar specifically for us, for our committee to use. So I'm going to put the link to it in the chat too, maybe if it will cooperate. So I also want us to take a minute and look at this one. This is more the overarching goals of kind of what we may want to focus on. So we decided that the 3 areas we wanted to primarily focus on were environment, litter, outdoor recreation, ACEs and trauma awareness, and community resources. And so I went through and tried to incorporate all 3 of those things into activities we could do each month of the year. So you can see this for April, it says educate the community on environment, litter, outdoor recreation through Earth Day events and activities. For Focus Area 1, Focus Area 2 will be that Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And then Focus Area 3, we can again work on that community shared calendar, making sure we have everybody on our resource directory. We are working on a part of our website, the Carter County Drug Prevention website, to be specific to the collaborative, so that we can have kind of a members only area. So we could have things in there, like if there are trainings we wanted to share, like this meeting today, if somebody missed the meeting and you really want to share that with them, we would be able to use that little members only area of the website to do that. And then also making sure that all of the contact information for everybody in the collaborative is listed in that little resource area, so that if people are looking for resources, they have somewhere to go. So take a few minutes and kind of look down through here. A few of the months I put in here, and this is, again, there are some blank spaces. So I want us to, if there are things that I'm missing or things that we really want to focus on that aren't in here, please let me know. And also just kind of look. So Committee A is working on a quarterly magazine. And so there are several things that we can do to contribute to that magazine. So if there are things coming up, particularly around the environment, litter, outdoor recreation, we want to make sure that we're capturing those in the magazine. We want to make sure that we have content on all of these focus areas, and that we're also using that to spread resources. You'll also see that there are several active events in here. So things like in August, making sure we're supporting back to school events. September, making sure we're doing storybook trail activities. And then November and December, looking at holiday collection events or some sort of support there. So take a few minutes and kind of look at this and let me know how you're feeling about it with where it is right now.
Maybe right now we can share information about vaccination opportunities for the community. I don't see anything about that.
Love that. I'm gonna put that here.
And well, I don't know if that could be interesting for others, but at least for my families, I think it's a good idea to share information about food pantries, diaper pantries, something like that.
Yes, I agree. And kind of what I was thinking, and y'all give me feedback on this. This first month, kind of figuring out what we want to do and looking at the potential for that calendar. And then in May, working on the training database so that we have trainings available to anybody throughout the collaborative. And then in June, doing exactly that and making sure we have resource guides available to everybody in the collaborative. So making sure, we all kind of pull our resource guides together and look at what we've got, what we want to make sure we capture on the website. If there are things that we see that are missing, kind of cross-referencing all of our resource guides. And so that way, really I kind of have this next 3 months as that. And then my thought was that we can maintain that in the future as well. So we know that every year in April, when we come back, we're going to look at how does our public community calendar look? How does our membership directory look? Then every May, we're going to look at trainings and what else we need and those kinds of things. So that's kind of what I was thinking. I will take any feedback on that or thoughts on it.
Jillian, it's Robin. Since I'm so new, I just don't, but what does training database? Is that a platform that you're developing, or is that you're going to record these trainings and house them somewhere?
So all of that is what it means. What
Okay.
we're thinking is having a section of our website, the Carter County Drug Prevention website, that is specific to collaborative members. So there would be like a login. It wouldn't just be open to everybody in the whole world. But say Mr. Jordan had somebody come to his Keep Carter County Beautiful meeting and talk about the dangers of litter, and it was a really good training. Then we take that recording, put it in this place so that all of us in the collaborative then have access to that. So if there's a teacher in the collaborative that really wants that training, then she can access it. Or if somebody's like, I want to train my employees on this emotional intelligence, whatever, then they have that training from today that they can share with them. So just within this collaborative, kind of incentivizing participation in the collaborative, but also sharing resources and making sure that we've spent this whole last year of the pandemic having Zoom trainings, and I don't just want them to disappear necessarily. So we have this we just upload ours to YouTube right now, and they're just out there to the world. But I feel like other agencies may have that same thing where there are trainings that we could share with each other and kind of support each other that way. So, if there's something, trauma-informed parenting is something that I would love to have. And I know that maybe like Catalina could use that with her parents or whatever. So just kind of a space where we all can have a calendar, where we all can have a director of resources, where we all can have access to trainings to share with each other.
Thank you.
So Julian, this is not a calendar of events. This is a calendar of things that we need to focus on for the month. Is that right?
Well, it's both. So the first calendar that I showed is the calendar of events. And so that would be our public calendar, where anybody that's contributing events, anybody could see that. And that really is kind of my goal for this month, is to have you all look at that calendar, see what you think, see if it feels like a good idea to have a shared community calendar, and kind of go from there. So both.
Great idea.
The answer.
Do you have April's on there already, or are you developing that?
I do some of them. This is early stages, but I will add your Earth Day.
Yeah, that's on the 17th.
Okay. So we are working on, I'll go back in here and add all the details. But we are working on the library website as well. And so it could also be that we incorporate this calendar on the library website, because I think a lot of people go to the library to look for resources and look for events and things. So I think we can incorporate it both on the Carter County Drug Prevention website and then also possibly the library website, just having this calendar of shared events. I kind of color coded this in a way that if we have people like a collaborative member, like Keep Carter County Beautiful is doing this event, we have that on there. Or if we have committee A is working on a specific event, we can color code it a certain way. Or if our committee is doing a coat drive in the winter or whatever we focus on, then we would have that activity. Or committee C is doing something. And then the committee meetings, or if the full collaborative ever decided to do a full or an event or activity for the whole full collaborative, they all kind of have their own colors just so people can see what that looks like.
Now, do you add that on there? We send it to you and you add it on, or do we access it through other means?
I have it right now where people can add it themselves. And we can talk about that. I know there's pros and cons of that, of letting people add things themselves. I'm not sure that I personally have the time to add on always updating this calendar. But if somebody else in this committee is willing to do that, that would be awesome. Or we can just have people sort of share or update it when they have things to update.
And how do we access the calendar?
Let's see here. I'm gonna put it in the chat for you. All right, so everybody else, what thoughts do you all have about either of these, the goals for the months or the community calendar?
Jillian, this is Robin. I'm wondering, because I mean, I want to get involved, but so is there a project plan for, is there a plan to launch these events, and who tells, I mean, what should I do exactly? So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So who's going to tell me what to do?
So every month we'll show up into this same subcommittee and work on these things. So there will also be the opportunity, of course, outside this subcommittee, if you have an event, to just go ahead and add that to the calendar yourself or an activity. And then Jane is working on a listserv for communication. So that has been one of our struggles with this collaborative, is taking the CAB membership list, the Health Council membership list, the Carter County Drug Prevention membership list, and finding an email server that will let us communicate with all 300 of those people, figuring out how to do that. And so Jane has created a listserv through the state. And so I'm hoping that that will streamline our communication a little bit. And when that happens, we will also be able to send out, so when we send out our meeting reminders, it says, if you have an event or activity, please use this form to submit it. So we have that right now, and we kind of compile things that way. And then we'll also add this calendar. If you have an event that you want to add to the shared calendar, then you can do that too. Did that answer your question? I'm not completely sure if it did.
Yeah, I take action, so you have to like ignore me, because I'm like, okay, what can I do?
No, that's perfect. That's what we need. All right, what other feedback do y'all have on this?
Jillian, I'm going to jump in. I do not want to be the person who says something in the meeting and changes everybody's tone. Trying to be emotionally aware, Robin. But as I look at this, it seems like it's an awful lot. And I kind of wonder if the reason many of us are silent, or at least for myself, is that it seems a little overwhelming and that we might be biting off an awful lot. I don't know if others feel the same way, but even just looking at April and kind of the areas of focus, it is already April. And so if we're going to try to make something happen, it seems almost like, you know, these are conversations that probably should have started in February or March, you know. And at this point, I realize we may not be able to tackle some of these things for April. But I feel like, you know, if we want to be doing some of the things we have listed in May, we probably need to be talking now about that and delegating things if we actually want to accomplish some of those things in May. So I don't know if I'm the only one that is thinking or feeling that, but you know, I, like Robin, I'm willing to help where I can. But we, you know, with time, you know, time is passing, and you know, if we want to make these things happen, we've got to start kind of chipping away at them now. So again, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed personally as I look at all the different things that we're trying to do. But I know if we have enough buy-in from each person, then, you know, we can certainly make some of this happen. But I'm just putting that out there because I know that's how I'm feeling right now as I look at all of this.
So I thought that was worded very well. I think that, so you were afraid that you were going to like pour cold water on the group. It didn't. You didn't. So don't worry about that. From me.
Good. Yeah, I certainly don't want to, you know, burst anyone's bubble, because I think it's great. I think there's lots of opportunity, but I think sometimes when you have so many things you're trying to focus on, it's hard to actually focus and get any of it done because you're kind of scattered. Again, I may be off base, but I'm sensing by a lot of people not talking that there may be other people who may feel similarly.
So Jillian, on this calendar, what's the what's first priority?
Well, honestly, all of these things are things that are already happening. Mr. Jordan has an event on the calendar for Earth Day. I have an event on the calendar for Earth Day. Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Judy McCook has things going already. So to me, most of this is this group providing support for the activities and events that the collaborative members are already doing.
Nice.
I'm good with whatever the group decides. I definitely need some people to have input and share what they're thinking or what they're feeling if they are feeling overwhelmed. I'm trying to make this group into something that actually does something. And I don't feel like we've been able to get there. So I'm trying to get some stuff on paper. And I'm fine with people not liking this stuff or feeling like it's too much, but we've got to figure out what we do want to do instead. So I really need people to share kind of what they're feeling, what they want to do, those kinds of things. And I also don't feel like everybody has to be a part of all of these things. This group from the beginning has been very varied in passions and direction and all of that. And so I don't think there's anything wrong with saying, you know, I look at May and none of those stand out to me as something that I want to do. So I'm going to hop back in June and participate here. I'm just not sure where to go from here. I'm just trying to give this group some direction and really appreciate everybody's kind of thoughts on this. So.
Hey, Jillian, my name is Lori Dorsett.
Hi.
I am the facility director of a level 3 residential home for adolescents here in Elizabethton. I'm looking at your calendar, and one of the reasons why I joined up the collaborative is I'm trying to get my youth that are here in the facility with me engaged with the community and vice versa, because I do believe that there's a big piece of the world that doesn't know that these types of facilities exist. for adolescents in DCS custody. So getting the awareness out there with the community, and also just places where I can get my youth involved with the community. So absolutely looking at the outdoor rec, Earth Day, keeping the environment clean. I'm okay with, if my youth want to volunteer, assisting with any of those Earth Day type activities, even if it means going, picking a road and picking up trash, whatever that looks like. So, as far as from what I can offer, and what me and my team can offer is absolutely anything that my youth can acquire knowledge from, and getting back and kind of centering them a little bit instead of thinking that the world revolves around them. So for any of those activities, whatever, I'd have to review a lot of them, just for safety purposes, but me and my youth would be at your disposal.
Thank you. I think that is great. I also have a really active youth coalition. So I would love to get them involved with that. And that our Earth Day celebration that we're planning is totally youth led. And so I think that's a beautiful fit. And I would love the more youth I think we can have involved in all of these things, the better. So we definitely can talk more about that, but I'm excited to have you here and part of this.
Yeah, your name was actually given to me through my own advisory board yesterday. You were recommended to me, I believe, by Aaron Culberson. So
awesome. I love
I'll make that
Culberson.
connection.
Awesome. All right. Thank you. All right. Who else has some feedback?
Well, Jillian, I appreciate you clarifying. When I was looking at this calendar, as you initially described it, I was assuming that these were all things that you wanted this subcommittee to do. And I just was thinking there's no possible way that we alone are going to be able to do these things. So, in looking at it, if the events in April, if there are already groups kind of working on those and developing those activities, perhaps what would be most helpful is if they could share with this subcommittee what their needs are. And then we can see how we can plug in, like Lori was talking about plugging in her youth. So I don't feel quite as overwhelmed knowing that this subcommittee isn't being tasked with creating these types of events and activities. But it would be helpful to know the groups who are taking on that responsibility, what their needs are, and then we as a subcommittee can maybe try to fill the gaps as we can.
Thank you. And I think my goal today.
I am.
Go ahead, Norma. Go ahead, Norma. You're good.
Oh, I just want to say I'm excited about helping with Earth Day, and I would be happy to do whatever needs to be done by any of you who are organizing something for Earth Day. It's one of my passions. So just tell me what to do and I will be there and do it.
Amazing. I'm going to connect you with Mr. Ed Jordan, who is the captain of all things litter and Earth Day and all of the environment stuff in Carter County. So I'll connect you all. Yeah, Mr. Jordan. You're muted.
I thought I would. Excuse me. I thought I'd be unmuted. I appreciate all of your kind comments. So I think the calendar is a great, another great tool for getting the word out about events being sponsored by all the volunteers that keep Carter County beautiful and the governments. For example, last weekend we had the tree planting. There's some 33 nice, beautiful trees over on Twitcher Trail in 2 locations. And even though we survived the hailstorm, we did survive the hailstorm when it ended in rain and got them all done. We need manpower is what we need, lady power, to get out and join us on these events. We don't just pick up garbage and trash. We are awareness program, beautification program, and we're working with our congressional leaders in the community at this time. And so just show up at the events. And if you want to get on the emailing list, please email me and say and let me know. And I'll put you on the mailing list for all the flyers and various things we do. The other thing is thank Julia for what she's doing, trying to pull the community together, because collectively together we can do a lot more awesome stuff as a unit instead of individuals out going on our own, because we all kind of reproduce each other, and we're doing good things, but if we don't get things done quite as well. So collectively we can succeed in many areas, in all these areas, not just the Earth Day celebrations and trash pickups and beautifications and so on and so forth. But we can all excel together collectively as a community. It is amazing what we can do when we pool together and help each other. So this is what I'm feeling from Julia, that she's putting together for this community to assist us to work together to become the best we can be, which we strive for, and protect our environment at the same time. Thanks.
Thank you, friend. So I think the goal for today is to kind of, if you all will just look at this and see if there are events that you know are already going to happen, or there are things that your organization wants to do and you know you need support with, or just kind of look at this and see, like, we know that our focus areas are going to be environment, litter, outdoor recreation, ACEs and trauma, and community resources. So are there any things in your organizations that you have coming up that you would like support from this group on? And if there are, let's plug those in. And then from here out, what I would like to do, if this feels okay with you all, is every month send pretty quickly after this meeting, hopefully, send some notes about the next month and say, okay, so next month we are working on promoting parks and green spaces. And so what do we have going on already? And so that then when we come back together, we can really work on filling in those holes, figuring out who can do what and how we can support each other and those kinds of things. Kind of what I was thinking. Any feedback, any more feedback on that? Does that?
Jillian, this is Megan. I think that what you put together is fantastic. I think especially from the point of view where, we serve a lot of counties. So this definitely puts into perspective, where we can plug in as the Children's Hospital. One thing that I was thinking is on the event planning calendar, if you could add a column that has, if there is a need for volunteers for something specific, people could specify that when it comes to putting their event on there, so that we better know what exactly their needs are.
That is a great idea. Thank you, Megan.
Jillian, who is the chair of this committee, so I know who to communicate with?
It is I. I am
Okay.
the chair of this committee.
All right.
And also, Jillian, I'm happy to help with the calendar if that helps you out.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Thank you, Megan.
Because I think another thing could be making just a monthly calendar that gets sent out in just one document instead of this spread out kind of look. I think this is a good format for the collaborative members to come and put their events in, but having a calendar that is easy to distribute in one page, I think would definitely serve a better purpose and be more user friendly. Not that this isn't. I'm just.
No, I agree.
I think from the perspective of the families I work with, if I were to hand them, if I knew they were from Carter County and I were to hand them, these this calendar of events, then this would probably be a little over their head.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that. And that is another thing with the listserv. So Jane is working on that listserv. And that's another thing that I think could work really well with that, is when she sends out that, I don't know, I kind of went out on a limb and told Jane I was overwhelmed by her number of emails for the last little bit. I don't know if anybody else was feeling that or not. And so we had several folks that were like, oh my gosh, I'm getting so many emails from this collaborative. And so she went to that format that's kind of like a weekly recap instead of emailing all the time. And so I think we have a possibility there too, to send this calendar out that way, when she's sending out other emails and stuff too, if we want her to. So something else we could think about.
Jillian, is this platform you're talking about through the state, is this like you'll be sending emails? It'll be like a marketing, is that what you're talking about?
It's our collaborative member group. So anytime we want to send an email, it goes to that group of people through that state list. If that at all.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm just making sure that you have something, because it's not specific to a state platform, but there's all kinds of free platforms out there you could use for this type thing. But if you have that covered, that's cool. There's like HubSpot and things like that you could be, I don't know if you've looked at those, but if you have something through the state that doesn't cost you anything, then that's cool.
Yes, Jane saved the day on that. We looked at several things and we're struggling. When we combined all three of these groups, we ended up with a listserv of around 300 people. And so we were struggling. Those are yours and Charlie's. We were struggling to find something that would allow us to send like mass emails like that and not just all of your emails think that we were spam. And so that's why we went with the state listserv, and Jane is handling all of that, and hopefully happy. It'll be wonderful.
Wow, that's nice. That's a lot of work. That's very nice.
All right, any other feedback before we finish up? Okay. All right, friends. Well, we will keep working through this and hopefully land on something manageable and something that's helpful for everybody and for the community. So I appreciate all of y'all being here. And if you need me in the meantime, yell at me. And we'll keep working on this. And I think we can do something cool with it. So. All right, I'm going to send us back to the main room.
Charlie and Cash probably have the kids' meals. Cash, get this to the car, please. Hold those.
Hey everyone, we'll give everybody just a few minutes to get back. If I can have each of our committee chairs plan to share just a few seconds about what they did today, or any needs from the big group.
And there's 3 more sandwiches, 3 more fries, and 2 kids' meals.
I think we are all back. Can I have Dolly, will you share just an update really quickly on your committee and what you guys did today?
Yes. All right. So first, great work, Committee A. Thank you all so much for bearing with me on this. So today we just went through the action plan and looked over our entire time table of tasks and timelines for creating the first Carter County Collaborative magazine. So we were assigning articles to everybody in the group, talking about what kinds of articles we want the magazine to include, and talked about the due dates for that, because our goal is to get the first edition published in May. So that is what we did. What I would need from the group and what I would like to do is just to fill everybody in. I know Coalition B is going to be contributing certain things to our magazine as well. Thank you so much. I don't know if y'all got to talk about it, but surprise if you didn't. And then something else that we need is I need to know, we're going to have a personal story highlight on an employee, somebody who works in organizations in a collaborative. And I would just like, if you could put it in chat box, anybody you would think has a really good backstory and maybe they'd be willing to share their story. Any of y'all can also nominate yourselves too, just to share something about yourself and why you got into the work you're into now. And then another thing is we're going to have in the magazine and in the media highlight. So if you are at any point, if your organization is in the media for any good news or anything like that, and you want to share little tidbits of it, you can send it my way. And we're also trying to create a collaborative list of resources throughout our community. So if you are in recovery and or whatever, we just want to have a collaborative list and want to make sure that nothing is left off of this list of resources in the community. And so if you have a phone number, an email, something, resources, I know we have it, but just so it's all put in one place, I'm going to put my email in the box. And if you can just email me, say, hey, this is my organization, this is the resource we provide, and the information, how people to reach out to you, we'll be sure to include you in that list. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dolly. Committee B today, we continue to work on figuring out who we are and where we belong in this world. We have created some action items for each month that we will continue to work through. We also have talked about resources. So Dolly, let's collaborate on that a little bit and see where you all are and where we are and make sure we're not duplicating there. So one of the things that I think we're going to try to focus on, so we have 3 focus areas. One is outdoor recreation, litter, beautification projects, those kinds of things. One is ACEs and trauma awareness, and one is resource share, making sure that everybody in the collaborative has access to resources, making sure our community, we see the gaps and those kinds of things. And so through all of those 3 things, we hope to work on tasks each month that relate to each of those 3 things. And one of the things that we're going to work really hard on is to create a section of our website, potentially partner with the library to have a shared calendar, so that we can always be sharing the events and activities and resources that you all have going. And then also sort of have a members only section of our website so that collaborative members have access to these specific resource guides that clearly Committee A and Committee B both find to be really important. And also membership directories and even trainings. There are recorded trainings that your organization would be willing to share with the rest of the collaborative. So we'll have this kind of members only area of our website so that we can always be sharing with each other and working together to share resources and needs. So again, we are still a work in progress, but we have some action items and some things that we're going to be working toward. So kind of where we are. Dr. DeLucia, will you share an update on Committee C?
Can you all hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great. Well, there were just a few of us on the call, but we had a good discussion about how Lacey Hardigan, working with the Tennessee Together survey, has been happy to communicate with us, Beth Baer and Nicole Moore, to send the survey request out for involving our schools with City of Elizabethton and Carter County schools. 8th, 10th, and 12th graders with about a 30-question survey using a passive consent, which makes it easier. Am I right, though, that this has to be tried to work it in for this school year? Is that correct, Jillian? So really a tight timeline, and maybe our odds of success are relatively limited. So this was the objective of our group. And so we're going to have a meeting this month, probably a Tuesday. Seems like we'll try and work out a Tuesday for our small group to brainstorm. It's just not enough time with these breakouts to come up with an action plan moving forward, because that's the only thing that our group had really said they were going to do. And so while waiting, we talked about maybe having Mr. Michael Might from ETSU, who has written a report on Appalachian deaths of despair. And it's a pretty new report, and it talks about deaths due to suicides, overdoses, and alcohol in the 420 counties of Appalachia, and it gives the state totals. It breaks them down by each type of death. It breaks it down by urban and rural, and it also looks, I think, at age groups. And so I'd be happy to share that around with everybody else, but it gets down into the kind of stuff that has increased since about 1970 with the white working class males and females, which we think is the target area. And so we were talking about, if it is rural, what can we do for economic survival in those areas? Because that seems to be where the disadvantage is. And we're thinking in terms of bringing those jobs back, bringing that opportunity back, broadband, tourism, things like that. Not on our plate, but working with policymakers.
Perfect. Thank you so much for sharing. All right. I know we are a few minutes over, so I'll go ahead and wrap us up for today. Thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate you for being part of our collaborative and the work that you do in our community. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.